Yeah, because we talked about managing one's day from a perspective of energy in and
Yeah,
energy out.
yeah,
So perhaps you could teach people what that means.
yeah. Okay. So if you think about it from a perspective of, um, I use a model. I built this model. After I built it, I realized it had been around me everywhere. Right? So you just go, oh, okay, did I build it? Did I just actually wake up to it? But it was simply when we look at a day's work, we say, okay, this is what I can get done in a day. These are like my KPIs. If I can meet my KPIs on today, then it's been a good day. If I can let my ego get out of that and look at it realistically and say, yeah, that's a good day's work, then instead of taking 8, 10, 12 hours to do that, I should be able to compress the timeline and get that down into about 6 hours.
Mm.
Now, and I do that by getting rid of waste that I didn't know was there, and I keep the focus high, because what we do is we get momentum, and that momentum is everything when it comes to change and growth, because basically the universe changes instantly. So anything slower than that is a drag. So the more you can align yourself with instantaneous change, the more in alignment with natural law you are. So 6-hour day, what you do in order to do that, you don't work with the idea of I need to just go, 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 because it's not a hustle. It's all about taking your foot off the brake instead of putting your other foot on the accelerator. And understanding that before you can give energy, you have to receive energy. Before you receive energy, you have to give energy. So you have to play that balance. Where do I give energy in order to receive? And how do I use that received energy in order to give again at a higher level? And then giving allows a correction so I can bring more in. And you just work with it. And it's actually very simple. I work with an A4 diary. I write 3 columns. One's got appointments today, because that time's not mine. That's already sold. So any other free time is broken between energy in, energy out. So I will have a whole heap of things that I do that are giving me fuel, that are connecting me to vision, that are bringing me into my alignment and repairing the damage, like an athlete has to recover from hard training. And then on the other page is hard training. So what am I doing? This is contacting clients. This is doing admin work. This is developing products. This is all of those things.
Hopping on a podcast.
Hopping on a podcast, right?
Awesome.
So we just back and forward off that. And by doing that, it's incredible the momentum you gain.
So Jason, I confess I've not yet been able to build that into my day as well as I would like, but it's
Yep.
certainly something that I'm working towards, as you know. And therefore I can't necessarily say I've benefited from this. But for yourself, to put that question to you, when you start thinking like this, it seems so simple. It really does.
Yeah.
Okay, an example that's been obvious to me since now I've thought about it is when you have a to-do list, how fucking epic it feels when you like bash through stuff.
Yeah.
But like when you don't, and I've got something sitting on my to-do list now for like 8 weeks and I just haven't done it. And it's just annoying. And there's an email in my inbox that hasn't moved for like 8 weeks. And you're like, ugh.
Yeah.
It's the same thing, right?
It is. And the reason for that is because the way your brain works is it only does one thing. It solves problems. So when you stick something on a to-do list, you've opened a loop and you've gone, right, here's a problem. We need to give energy to solve this problem. We need to close the loop.
Mm.
Now, if you don't close the loop, you're spending energy keeping it running. You've got to commit energy to it. And the more of it you've got, the more energy is being siphoned off to run all these side ideas. That's one of the big returns on it, because the principle of working like that is so I can have more time, more space, more energy, not so I can cram more in. And that's where you got to get your ego out.
Which is also interesting just as an investor. It's very contrarian. This idea that like, if you want to go fast, you've actually got to slow down.
Exactly right.
Or you actually want to achieve things, but you've got to stop doing stuff. It's like, what?
Yeah.
That's the complete opposite of what I think I want. Is that pattern something that you start to see everywhere?
Yeah, you do. And what happens is, like, I mean, if you look at it just in the simplest form, we talk about universal law. The best example of universal law is nature. If you understand the laws, as soon as you look at nature, I'm looking out the window. I live in a remote village in southern Tasmania, and I'm looking out the window at rolling hills and forests and
Awesome.
all that sort of stuff. And when you look out there, you can see it everywhere. You can see those laws everywhere. And if we take anything from nature, we have to take this. There is zero waste. Nothing is wasted in nature. Everything has a purpose. Even in death, things move into a new stage of usefulness. And that whole process, it just doesn't end. Where we have problems in it is where we try and put our concept of what nature should be doing for us, and we start messing with it.
Mm.
So, like you said before, it's simple. The nature is simple. Truth is simple. The complexity that we have in our lives are really just layer upon layer of bullshit that we're believing in. And we're complicating stuff that we don't need to. And it's inefficient. And if you're in a boat, if you're in a canoe, right, and you're paddling, you can paddle upstream. That's against nature. Okay. So it's like, okay, it's going to be harder, more effort. But if you've got 2 or 3 people in that canoe and they're all paddling with different timings in different directions, how efficient do you think it's going to be? If you get in alignment with natural law, that's like putting your boat out into the middle of the river, because you know that's where the water moves fastest and smoothest, and you pull your oar in. You don't paddle at all. You let the water take you at much faster and easier than you think you would go. And then all you got to do is put in occasionally and just give a little prod just to correct where you want to go. It's so efficient,
Wow.
but we don't do it.
And Jason, that makes me think about capital allocation and misallocation. So it's
Yeah.
like you're chucking good money after bad. And so if you can figure out where and when you're doing that, that makes you a much better investor. And that is, of course, in some ways the holy grail. Which is the good place to put your money? I don't know. But if you can start to think like this, it's just a whole nother layer of sophistication that
Yeah.
is just opening up for me now, to be honest. This kind of energy work, that energy and emotional work as well, like busting through old school trauma that, wasn't even mine in some cases.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's just wild to me, that you can start to think at this kind of level. And I know the results I'm going to get will be basically unbelievable. You're like,
Yeah.
whoa, how did that
Yeah.
happen? And it'd be from this work. I can see something on the tip of your tongue. Did I?
No, I was just thinking about it, because it's like, yeah, there's people. I deal with a lot of people who have an extremely high level of perception. And I'll call it that, because otherwise, what most people look at and they go, oh, this person's got like, they're an empath. These are identities that people create to cover their own lack of discipline. So, I'm an empath. I walk into a room, I feel everybody's emotions. No, you have poor boundaries, right? You're full of trauma. You haven't done the work on yourself. You've got poor boundaries. You're not special. You're just really getting slapped in the face by everything. It's like,
Wow.
put a helmet on, grow up.
Wow.
So you can imagine I don't have many friends in the industry. but what happens is we get caught up in this. So a lot of people will say, oh, I've got a person who, I know this person who's a clairvoyant, right? What do they do? Oh, they read cards or whatever. That's what people think people do with these abilities. It's not true. A lot of people do, but the people that are in the outstanding level, they're not doing that at all. If you had an ability to understand, to be able to perceive energy, to be able to manipulate your relationship with time, to understand natural law, why would you sit at a mind-body festival and read cards for strangers for like $30 for half an hour? Why would you do that? The people that are skilled, outstanding at that, they're in business. They've got their own businesses. They're investing. They're using a high level of perception, not clairvoyance, a high level of perception to be able to read the flows of the energy around the work that they do. And they're turning that into successful business, and those results into quality of life.
Yeah. And happiness.
I work with those people. I love those people.
Epic.